You are now listening to the TerrorVision podcast.
Welcome to the TerrorVision podcast, where we talk all things TerrorVision all the time.
Isn't it a video cast? Because we're on Zoom.
No, Ryan, it's just a podcast.
Video cast even exist?
I don't think they call it that anymore. I know you're old school. Everybody has to realize that Ryan is
Like
still,
an 8-year-old.
is this you're still like a snail mail guy. Like, put it in the mail, let me get it. Like, the digital file world of Ryan doesn't really exist too much. But anyways, we wanted to do this show to inform people, product, our process, and just transparency of everything that we do at TerrorVision, record side, and of course the video side, which is now kind of taking off. But I mean, I think first is this company was not started by myself and Ryan. This was created by you years ago. So tell people about Graveface and then the TerrorVision side of things.
Graveface, I started just out of high school as a means of releasing my own music because it was not good enough to certainly be published by anyone else. And started working with a bunch of different bands, and then got kind of bored with bands and started working on film-related activities that no longer made sense in the Graveface sort of sphere. So I hatched TerrorVision in late 2014 after taking a cue from Jim Wynorski, who was shit-talking some other recording label and saying there needs to be a horror label dedicated to preserving old art within these scores, which I thought was interesting, that kind of the opposite was happening at that point in time. Well, still, most of these labels tend to hire new artists, which are, I mean, honestly, the new art's fucking great. But I saw his point because I'm such a nerd for VHS culture. So yeah, that was kind of where TerrorVision came from. And he gifted us the Not of This Earth score release, kind of as a motivator to get me to actually start TerrorVision. So in a weird way, Wynorski is not responsible for TerrorVision, but
Kind of like a catalyst to tell this, set this up. Yeah. So, 2014, you launch Not of This Earth is your first album, and then and how was the response on that, and what kept you going? Like, what was the next?
It's really bad response, really bad. The first four titles did just terribly. I mean, yeah, I can't even describe how bad they I mean, amazing stuff like fucking Killing Spree. That score is so good. It's so good. And yet I still have copies from back then. I think we only made, I don't know if it was 500 or 1,000, but it certainly wasn't a lot. But yeah, I guess what keeps me going with anything is it just becomes very selfish, and it's what I want to do. So I'm like, fuck it. I'm just making products that I want as a big dork, and hopefully somebody buys them. Or even if they don't buy them, if they steal them, hopefully they really enjoy them when they steal them. So that's,
Please don't steal TerrorVision records.
but that, yeah, fast forward to because I had made 3 feature films as Graveface, and I will never show them to anyone. They're not good. But so the idea was there for a long. I mean, that was back in a long time ago. So the idea was there, try to bring film to Graveface, and it just always felt like a weird dead end, because that's really two very different sort of demographics. I'm not really sure why, like indie, you would think indie music would go hand in hand with independent cinema, but it it didn't, at least not in my world. So maybe because it's such, it's all horror stuff. So maybe that was the problem. And
yeah,
maybe these people listening to sentimental shoegaze records literally have no interest watching someone get murdered. So anyway,
I can see it. I can see it not crossing over is what I'm saying.
Yes.
But no, I that's cool that you brought that up, because with doing things that you want to do, that's kind of like the foundation of the video label.
Yeah.
Is what we discussed, and kind of how we met. So or not how we met, but kind of how this all, like the beginning of our story. So I met Ryan in October of 2020, I believe, when I was visiting Savannah. Just happened on a whim. My wife took me to go to your record store, which I knew of TerrorVision Records prior, but I wasn't familiar with Graveface, or the actual record store in Savannah. So I was there, and I think I was picking up a Spookies record, and you saw me, and I was like taking a picture of it or something. And then we started talking about it, and I was like, I work for the company that I actually found the rights to the film, and we released it, and that's when I was at Vinegar Syndrome. And then that kind of blossomed from there, and you told me about the museum, and I went to the museum, and then we exchanged something. I don't know, it was like social media or something like that. And we discussed a soundtrack that's not yet released, that we haven't announced yet, that I was able to, find the music, get the rights, blah, blah, blah. And then we started talking about getting the rights to that movie. And that's kind of where all this ended up, and the rights were unfortunately unavailable. They were, already licensed to another company. But it's like, okay, well, that didn't work, but what other weird shit can we release? And then it just kind of went from there. And originally we were just looking at like shot on video stuff, and then it quickly, as TerrorVision was a partner label with Vinegar Syndrome, as we are no longer a partner label at Vinegar Syndrome, we started looking at other things. We had a couple documentaries, Love and Saucers and Blood, Guts, and Sunshine. And, we had Killing Spree, which is not shot on video, but it shares that aesthetic, Video Violence 1 and 2. So we just, we got together, we did WNUF as the first title, and, that sold really, really well. And it just kind of grew from there. And what else can we do? And when we ventured out on our own, doing our own distribution and everything, then that's when everything just kind of changed as far as what we're doing at TerrorVision now. And it's cool that you mentioned earlier, because that kind of segues into this, is that we're using the video label as just stuff that we like. Stuff that we really enjoy. Obviously WNUF, and we'll talk about maybe about these titles further as we get into the different shows and everything. This show, we probably want to just focus on our recent releases, which is Copperhead and End of the Line. But I mean, something like WNUF, You're Friends with Chris, we both love that movie. It's only been on DVD. It was kind of a no-brainer. Norway was, something that I brought to the table because I was obsessed with that movie ever since I saw it in like 2016 at a festival. A movie that I tried to get distributed a few times, back when I was, because my history, just real quick, is, I was basically writing reviews for a website called Pop Shifter. And then that transpired into getting a podcast with a dear friend of mine, Sean DeRegger. We just did the Screamcast for several years. And then just being a fan of home video, I got in touch with guys at Vinegar Syndrome early on around the Night Train to Terror days. And I started doing side work for them. Then I started working at Wild Eye Releasing. So that was more of the contemporary stuff. And that's a whole other story. Long story short, did that for several years, and I've been in home video now for a long time. And now our paths have crossed, and we're trying something new, which I've said repeatedly to you, and we haven't been too public about this, is that TerraVision's kind of brand, for those wondering what we're going to be doing, is there really isn't a brand. So it's going to be kind of unpredictable in a sense. It's the love of movies will show, but we are recreating a video store, essentially. When you went in a video store, they had everything you ever could dream of, things that you weren't interested in. And that's probably going to happen with this label. You're not going to be interested in something, and that's fine. This label isn't catering to a certain audience. It's catering to everybody. We want to cater to everybody. People that really love movies, people that like to buy physical media. That's what we're after. Sharing our love with movies, living vicariously through these people that are watching things for the first time. I think that's very important. Turning people on to new things, new genres of cinema, new countries, new genres, maybe, if you're not into certain, maybe comedies or musicals or whatever it may be. Something like that will come from TerraVision. And that's exciting for us because we're not putting ourselves in a box. We're not saying, oh, we can't do that. We'll have shot on video, we'll have digital, we'll have film, 8mm, 16mm, 30. It doesn't matter. If it's a movie, it's possible to be on the TerraVision label, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's cool. And to kind of jump into end of the line, for example. I know that was something I brought to you because I was trying to get end of the line on home video for years. It was something I tried to get for Wild Eye when I was doing acquisitions for them, because they would tend to do older things here and there. If they found something that's never been on home video or it's been a while, Rob would definitely entertain the idea. But it just never worked out. I was in touch with Maurice for, a few years. So when this kind of took off between us, it was just a no-brainer for me because it's one of my favorite horror films. I think it's insanely scary.
So good.
Yeah, and it holds up. Like it's and it was kind of cool when we did the announcement that people did remember it, because I was like, it's kind of forgotten about in a way. I think it hit hard at festivals and people knew it around that time, because it played at Fantasia, it played a Fantastic Place Fest, it played at a bunch of festivals in 2007, 2006, 2007, and then it hit DVD, and that's when I first saw it, when it hit DVD, and it really impacted me because I was like, man, this is fucking scary. I showed it to some friends years later, and a couple of them were like, this is the most terrifying movie I've ever seen. And I'm like, cool, like, it's great. Like, I'm glad that there's something that's scary. And that's honestly kind of the initial response we had from people.
Yeah.
Was, just a overwhelming response when we announced it. That was just, this is a terrifying movie. And it's like, yeah. And it really has been kind of fallen to the wayside because it got stuck on DVD. It was never really streaming anywhere. Before we brought it back, I still think it's just stuck on DVD. I don't think it has been anywhere else. I think Germany had like a Blu-ray a few years ago. But with jumping to the TerraVision release, it's shot digitally. So it's HD cam, which we do have a new master for it. So it's going to look better than anything prior. So because there isn't really a restoration on digital format. You can export it if you have the original files. You can export it to a different, but you can't have like UHD capabilities. It's mainly just HD. 1080p is essentially, you can't have 2K, you can't have 4K on that, because that's when it was mastered in that format at that time, and nothing like that existed in 2007. But 1080p did. So that's what this is, but it's a presentation that's never been seen. I believe the German Blu-ray may have been a lower quality, but this is progressive 1080p. And we have the cool thing was about the sound. Did you want to talk about the sound, Ryan?
I love the sound.
No, I'm saying what we did with the sound.
Just happy that he found I'm just happy that it came together the way it did. And
yeah. So on the release, Maurice had the original sound elements, and when you have that, you're able to separate that and do a remaster and make 5.1. So a lot of times there's a lot of debate with titles that are re-released on home video. Sometimes they're 2.0, they're stereo, they're mono, whatnot. I can't speak for other labels. Sometimes that's what you have to do because that's all there is. But if the capabilities are there for TerraVision to improve on something, which there was, and we actually delayed this release because of that.
Yeah.
We delayed End of the Line because we could do 5.1, and we delayed Copperhead because we wanted to do captions. Long story short, we forgot to do captions, but that's the thing, is like we just could have pushed it through, but we didn't want to do that. But yeah, so the 5.1 on End of the Line, which is great because the sound design one is great, and to hear that for the first time, it's going to be pretty impactful because the film kind of relies a lot on its sound design and its music, and it's got some scary fucking scenes, and that's going to amplify everything. So that's really neat. And is there anything else we did for End of the Line? Did a new interview with Maurice. So all the old extras from the DVD have carried over. So that's a commentary. It has him and I believe the composer, who's also the digital effects artist.
Right.
I think. And then there's a making of piece on there. But we do have some old extras that were done that were never on any other release. We have a deleted scene. We have Maurice talking about distribution, which is fun. But that's the interesting thing, is that every filmmaker, and this can kind of segue into what we're doing at TerraVision, is that distribution does get a bad rap a lot of times because of just the history of distribution with any distribution, really. But let's just focus on home video. So there are a lot of skeezy people in the 70s and 80s and 90s because this industry was so huge. I mean, people were making movies in the 80s and they were almost guaranteed millions of dollars just in VHS. It was just a different market. But that continued, because then when DVD came in, all these video stores got rid of all their tapes, and then they started, doing DVD, and then there was direct to video around that time. And so the market kind of changed again and was big because video stores needed to buy these DVDs. So that said, with TerraVision, we're very much filmmaker friendly with what we do. We want to make sure that people are getting what they deserve. I mean, they made the movies, for Christ's sakes. And it's going to be interesting for people to hear Maurice talk about distribution while we talk about distribution, because everybody views it a little bit differently. Some filmmakers love distribution, some hate it, but rightfully so, because we've heard horror stories. I've heard horror stories all my life of bullshit that has happened, and sometimes it's hard to get filmmakers to go with you in certain deals, because they've been fucked over before. So that's something that that we acknowledge at TerraVision, is that we want this to be filmmaker friendly. We're filmmaker first type people, mainly because we're filmmakers ourselves. So we understand, like, we don't want to have people constantly fucked over. But yeah, that's pretty much everything with End of the Line as the release. And yeah, we hope it catches on. The trailer still kind of rips. It does give a few things away if you haven't watched it, which we won't spoil anything on this show. But I always suggest, if you haven't seen the trailer for End of the Line, don't watch the trailer for End of the Line, because it does spoil a couple things that are pretty exciting in the film. But yeah, it's available on our site at terror-vision.com. Available for $24.99. And then we also have a club member. So if you join the club, it's $225, and that guarantees you the next the next 10 TerraVision titles on Blu-ray. And that will, of course, include UHD when that does pop up. And that will basically get you the titles at $22.50, and that includes shipping for domestic. So that saves you a lot of money right there. And that's always going to be available. We're always, it's not a certain time you have to sign up. You could sign up at any time. And then when you sign up, if we announce something and you sign up, then those are the titles that you will get. You're more than welcome to email us and try to get an old one. That's fine too. We want you to have these movies. Just ask. It's very, very, very simple. Is there anything you'd like to add, Mr. Grayface?
For some reason, the way you said the website address made me wonder, what is terrorvision.com?
I have no idea.
I've never like, how did I end up with terror-vision.com?
Yeah, it's actually, you know what? Since, warts and all, we're going to do it. We're going to do it right now. Terrorvision.com.
Please be porn. Please be porn.
Dude, it's not. You could buy it. Why you have Terror-Vision?
You're saying it's available?
It's available. It's so the thing is that apparently it might have been a site when you originally did it, because the domain here says that it is for sale for $18,000.
What the fuck?
Yeah. But hurry, one person has it in its cart.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And that's me. I'm buying it right now.
All right, so that's what are you serious about the $18,000 thing?
Yeah. It's like monthly installments of like $700 or something like that.
I think there was like maybe a band from Europe or something.
Well, there is online, because the TerraVision, I think, on like Twitter, is another group of guys that have had like a podcast for a number of years or something.
Oh, yeah.
Like that.
Cool.
Yeah. So
I don't look at anything. I'm just like, I like this name. This is the name. I spent literally no time. I didn't think anyone would ever care, you just kind of do shit. So
yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to add to End of the Line other than talking about the website?
No, I think you've covered it beautifully.
But yeah, if you have any questions, you can email us. We're on social media. I'm at Brad F. Henderson on Twitter. You can email us at terrorvisionvids at Gmail. And you just ping us on any platform. It's all open. You can ask us anything. We're on a couple forums. We're on a couple Discords, stuff like that. So we're trying to answer as many questions.
Who's we?
Well, I am, because you don't know how technology works. But I'm the one on there. And yeah, if you ask any questions, we're not going to answer questions about rights and shit. So refrain from that because that gets really boring. But if you have questions about your order or anything like that, we'll direct you in the right location.
I gotta say, I love how irked you get when people ask you about acquisitions.
Well, dude, it is one of the, because like the thing, what it is you open the door, right? And it's
I love
like,
that door.
what about Blood Beach? What about Prom Night 2? What about, it's like, right. The thing is that no boutique label is sitting there and hasn't thought about Blood Beach.
Right.
It's not that the fan base has this revelation of something that they discover that no one has thought about. It's in the works. It's been inquired about probably more than you can imagine. It's not happening for a reason. There's so many different, and I'm glad you brought that up, Brian, because that segues into another topic, is that sometimes these things take years and years to acquire and work out, because it's a long process. And we'll talk about this on the show, because I told you kind of how Maurice happened. I messaged Maurice and I said, is End of the Line available? And he said, yes, he owns it. That's it. that's the distribution trail story, or the acquisition story. But every film, again, every film has a different story, has a different journey. Certain things could take years. You may find the rights, but not the elements. You may find the elements, but not the rights. Things can be tied up for legal reasons. There's so many different factors that can make a movie not come out, and it's a long list of things, and that's why it's like it's every time it's the most common titles you can think about that get asked, and it's just like Blood Beach ain't gonna happen because no amount of money can get Blood Beach released, apparently, mainly because that means that they owe probably Writers Guild, they probably owe SAG, they probably owe money, and that could be a problem. So that's one of the reasons why Blood Beach isn't out. And as I was told, no amount of money has been good enough to do it, and there's been a lot of money offered for that fucking movie. So things like that. I mean, there you go. No one has to ask about Blood Beach ever again.
I just think it's cute because you do acquisitions for a living, and like I'll see you screenshotted something that had nothing to do with what I focused in on, and you were like, no questions about acquisitions. And I was just like,
that's when we were doing the show, because that's what happens on those live YouTube things, is that people just get in there and bombard with questions about, like, what's going on with this, what's going on with that. Well, many things are going on with a lot of things, and it can be a little taxing answering those questions, because, like, I don't know, but eventually, I mean, we'll talk about things on this show. That's the whole idea about being transparent. For Copperhead, we can get into Copperhead. There we go. I tried, and this can go into the Wild Eye days, is when I started working at Wild Eye, Rob there was talking about starting a shot on video label, which essentially became Visual Vengeance way after I left. But I was working on getting titles for that label, and despite what certain people say and do, a few of those Visual Vengeance titles, like LA Age Jabber and Slaughter Day, I think they announced Lunatic, which is a kind of a lost slasher that's shot on video. A couple others. Those are titles that I acquired for Rob when I was doing. It was originally going to be like Wild Eye SP or SEP or something like that. There's a bunch of films that were required in there, some Todd Sheets movies and whatnot. But Copperhead was one of the things that I was after, because I've always really, really enjoyed the oddity of Copperhead. It's weirdness. And with that, it was just, Leland and Crystal are, they made one movie pretty much, other than the bonus film that's on the disc called Motorhome from Hell. But they made this one film, and they originally licensed it to United Home Video, which was Bill Blair's company, who eventually became VCI. And in the time that they sold Copperhead in 1984, 85 on home video, they made a ton of fucking money on it. I think they sold the rights, or licensed it for like $300,000, which is a lot of money in 1984. I mean, shit, it's a lot of money now. But they licensed it. So when we went to them, they were, we gave them an offer when we were with Wild Eye, and they just laughed because they said we made $300,000 on this. So jump forward to years later. Ryan and I are talking. Copperhead comes up. We make a better offer than what we had with Wild Eye, and after some discussion and talking about it and making them realize that this isn't 1984 anymore, the distribution business has completely changed, like a complete, like it's like a 180, that this is what we can do. And obviously they agreed, and they took a big part in this too. I mean, they did interviews, they did an on-camera commentary that I watched, that Ryan got to see way before I did, and he described it as very cute.
It's so cute.
No, it is. It really is adorable, because they're almost like they're doing a bit.
Yeah.
When they do it. And they did a commentary. Obviously their son was involved, Ross, who helped out a great deal behind the scenes, shooting the interviews. And he's a filmmaker himself. He directed Motorhome from Hell, that Leland wrote, and it was supposed to be done in the 90s, I think they said, and then it just got delayed, and they made it in the mid 2000s. What year is Motorhome from Hell? 2005?
Yeah, 2005.
Yeah. So that was never, ever released on any format. It kind of just fell by the wayside. Things, I guess, didn't work out, or they couldn't find distribution. And that's a bonus film that we added on. What essentially is becoming a lost film was Copperhead, because after we acquired it, I was looking for it like online, because we look for like YouTube links to take down and stuff like that when we're releasing something, because it can hurt us as a small business. But there was nothing. There was nothing online about Copperhead, and really like hardly any like reviews or anybody talking about it.
Yeah,
and
it was
just
basically a lost film.
Yeah, it was, when I think I tweeted out a couple times, it's like was on the verge of extinction, which is true. Like it wasn't a very popular tape. The tape is pretty rare itself. But yeah, no, we're happy to do it, and we did. There were 3 transfers from the film from different sources, different masters. So that's something else that we can kind of segue into, is that at TerraVision we try to find the best elements possible. With Copperhead, we just could have done the one transfer and called it one and done, but we wanted to see kind of what worked best, what tape looked the best. And it's crazy how great it looks, being it shot on video. At times you can't even really tell that it's shot on video. It looks like it could have been shot on like 8mm or something. But that's probably because of the cinematography by Kevin. I think his last name's Hudnall, who went on to have kind of a bigger career in is still, even to this day, in Hollywood and film. So they had a professional DP shoot the film, and then they basically had local actors and stuff like that
family.
For the cast and crew. What'd you say?
I just said and family.
Yeah, and family, of course, which is Ross is in it as a little kid. But yeah, it was it was kind of a fun little project because it was kind of a family affair for them. It's something that they are proud of. And there's 13 hours of content on that disc, and behind the scenes, Ryan asked me when we were early on. He was like, we need more shit for Copperhead. We don't have anything. And we were trying to work on other interviews. I was in contact with Jack Renner, who plays the lead in the film, who's the gun nut. And he wasn't feeling too well when we initially contacted him. And sadly, when I contacted him again to shoot the interview, I spoke to his wife, and Jack sadly passed away. But from what I know, he was a big fan of the film and quoted it all the time. He would use that quote that is in the beginning of the trailer. Put down that snake, boy.
Did you say he said that to you when you first talked to him or something?
Yeah. That's the other thing. Yeah, when I first spoke to him, I brought it up. I said, is this Jack Renner that was in Copperhead? And he immediately busted into that character, saying, "Put down that snake, boy. Put it down now." And I was like, okay, this is the fucking dude. But yeah, sadly, he wasn't feeling too well, and he passed on. So that was a bummer. We couldn't get him to do an interview. We did find Greta Ratliff, but she, I think she has like a different look at the film. It's something that she did, but she's not actively proud of. I spoke to her son, and I guess she did entertain doing an interview, but at that point it was a little too late to shoot it. But if there's ever an anniversary for Copperhead, we may do it. A fake 4K UHD of Copperhead.
Oh my god.
But yeah, there's 13 hours of content on that disc with multiple interviews. There's 4 commentaries total on that disc. Did you know that, Ryan? 4 commentaries.
A lot of commentary. I mean, it's my fault. I kept harassing you.
Yeah, you kept harassing me, and this is what I do. I was like, all right. So we have two commentaries for Copperhead. One is with Leland, Crystal, and Ross, the family, which is I would consider the best one. And then Ross did one with his he has a podcast that he does. He had his friends on because Copperhead's something with him that he's kind of carried all through his life. I think he says in his interview he's made fun of from his friends about it, and what I think they would just keep saying Copperhead to him because that's his one of his the dog has white teeth, I think, is another line that he says in the movie. But yeah, he did an interview or did a commentary with his friends, and then Motorhome from Hell has him with the filmmakers or the actor, 2 of the actors, and then I think he has his podcast buddies on a second comment. So there's 4 commentaries on that disc, and then there's a bunch of press stuff, isolated score, which again, that is something that is available right now. Is you can talk about the Copperhead LP, Mr. Grayface.
So you can get a sip of that delicious soda.
Diet Coke.
Yeah. So the Copperhead music is like my favorite shit I've heard in a long time, which is kind of funny for a variety of reasons. But I realized that it would never in a million years sell because it's Copperhead and no one knows what the fuck it is. So for the first time ever, we're doing like a sort of made to order concept where if you buy between now and April 1st, we'll fucking make you a copy. And if not, I guess you'll get it on Discogs if you want it down the road. It's not going to be our usual way of making an amount that I determine and then we hope to sell. It's actually going to be the opposite. So the interesting thing is I was checking the stats on the TerraVision Record Club because I sent them a little survey link and said it's mandatory that you respond to this, which not that many people have responded, but mandatory or not, 82% of the people have opted in for that release, which I thought was pretty interesting. So that's cool. I don't know.
It's a good score. It has variety too, because there's two composers.
Yeah. There's a pianist composer and an electronic composer, but it's honestly just like it sounds like a Lost Tangerine Dream score or something. Like, it's fucking great. And that's all
The electronic score is it kind of rips.
Yeah. So anyways, that's available for the next couple weeks, and then it won't be available. And then once I get those numbers in, I'll make the record, and in a couple months we'll have a physical product. I think we're here, the warehouse that I'm sitting in right this second. I think we're actually gonna screen print the jackets, which we have not done for TerraVision as like a main release sort of thing. We've done that for test pressings and like Killing Spree, we did a special release with a screen printed jacket, and I think that those were the only examples of that. But this one, like the way Earl set up the art, which I love, by the way, is really nicely separated in a way that I think we could do a 3-color print and it will look fucking awesome screen printed. So probably do it on chipboard jackets is what I'm thinking, and it will look pretty dope. So yeah, it will be a very DIY sort of vibed release, but it should look and sound ace. So if you want that, don't go to TerraVision.com because I'm not buying that shit for $18,000, but go to Terra-Vision.com.
Well, I guarantee if you just type in maybe Copperhead TerraVision, it's going to pop up because
yeah, right. What else?
No one has attempted anything copper, and that's the crazy thing, So not to pat ourselves on the back, but you have a film that was kind of lost to obscurity on tape, and now has a Blu-ray, an LP coming out, and then is the cassette the same way, made to order?
No, cassette is a wide release.
Okay, but still, Blu-ray, LP, and a cassette of this movie that you've never heard of. I don't know, pretty fucking cool in my book. And that's the shit that we're into at TerraVision. So if anybody wants to know the type of shit that we like, this is it. They
had the original tapes. Yeah, right. They had the original tapes for the music, which I know doesn't sound that exciting, probably sitting at home listening to this, but it's actually to have the original tapes and not just a DAT backup of the original tapes is rarer. DAT's fine. That's how I sourced Unsolved Mysteries. That's how I sourced, I think, Chud 2.
Explain to our audience DAT.
DAT is inferior bullshit that has, it looks like a mini DV tape basically, but it's one of those formats kind of like mini DV actually that over time just, you can hear little digital glitches, and there's no way like with actual tape, you can bake the tapes and potentially clean the mold off and all, there's a sort of preservation stage with that doesn't always work, but at least it's there. With something like DAT or mini DV, if that source is fucked, it's fucked. Yeah, actually thinking of it, Neon Maniacs was DAT, and luckily, thank fuck, on the DAT there was I think 4-track stereo, the rest mono. The theme song of Neon Maniacs was one of the 4 stereos, and it had this literal like DAT glitch maybe 30 seconds into the track, and luckily it was available as a mono cue as well, and that one played perfectly. But anyways, point being, a lot of people would ditch their physical large tapes and just back up onto DAT because they were told in the recording studio that that's the next wave of the future. They've obviously no one was telling them, oh, in 30 years it's going to sound like dog shit. So a lot of people threw away their original tapes, but not the Copperhead folks. So that's why I was so inclined to do this, because I sent them up to Mystery Street in Chicago, who does a lot of my physical tape transfers. I do all my own DAT stuff here, but the Mystery Street people sent me a sampling of it, and I was like, this literally sounds like it was recorded fucking yesterday. It sounds so good. Like, it's just like Copperhead, the Blu-ray looks better than it should.
Oh yeah, no, it that's the thing, is the presentation on this movie is with between the sound and the soundtrack and the presentation with the video is it's kind of remarkable.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel, that's the thing, is it doesn't feel like it would have been a lost thing,
right?
But Leland and Crystal took care of everything they had.
Well, Ross is such a good dude that, like, he clearly believes in this movie and wanted to carry on that tradition. And I mean, what a great dude and what a good champion for that film in that family. So
yeah, Ross made a lot of things happen. It was just, and plus it was easier, with the whole, because like doing something like this, like, you can, certain titles are easy, other titles are incredibly hard. And when you have someone, and that's the same thing like Maurice with End the Line, he's very on it. Like, he understands how it works, he understands what you need. And it helped a lot with these two titles. So we're pretty fortunate with those two titles to have people that understand and have the want for this stuff to come out. Because you do have, a lot of times you have filmmakers that you contact and it's like, hey, do you own this? Yes, I do. Well, we would like to re-release it. And then they're like, what the fuck? Why? What's wrong with you?
Yep.
And it's like, well, we're fans of it. Well, why are you, this movie sucks. Why would you want to re-release it? I threw away everything about that movie. You have that sometimes. And that could be, a big obstacle, and that, delays things. That's where sometimes things could take a couple years. Finding other video sources or whatnot. But yeah, with Copperhead, it's kind of cool. The jump that it made.
And don't forget,
and plus, what was that?
Don't forget, there's a cruelty-free version.
Yeah. So something that I notice in home video a lot is when there's animals, real animal death. I did a quotation marks in the air for the people that are just listening to this. Copperhead has some, I just called it snake obliteration. But to be fair, most of the animal death or reptile death in Copperhead is actually mostly dead snakes. And like the turtle that you see in the film that is demolished and it's still alive, that is actually roadkill. Just because of where Leland and Crystal lived and where they filmed, it was up in the mountains, so they had access to many copperheads, many reptiles, and that's kind of their side job anyway. I think they claim that there's only 3 copperheads that they actually killed, which to a lot of people that'd be one too many. So we have a cruelty-free cut of the release. So if you don't want to see that, it's available to you. And we did cut that ourselves. Michael Keane actually created our cruelty-free cut. So if you want to enjoy Copperhead without seeing the reptile death, you can. So, that was my 10:30 alarm. If you could hear that little lullaby dinging. Did you hear that, Mr. Grayface?
No, what, are you gonna take a pill or something?
No, I don't take any medication.
Oh. I don't know what to say to that because I take so much.
Well, you just pretend. All you do is you just pretend it doesn't exist. There you go.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds dangerous though for
No, I don't have anything. So, um, but yeah, I think that covers, and also the isolated score is on the disc.
yeah.
Copperhead. Yeah. So not saying, hey, skip out on the record or cassette because it's on the Blu-ray. I believe it's just like maybe one continuous track.
I think it was submitted as two, like side A, side B, if I recall. But
Yeah.
basically, more or less, you're right. It's just
Yeah. And if you want to just put that on your television and let it play, feel inclined to do so, but that's kind of weird and annoying. Get my Blu-ray. I want to listen to the Copperhead soundtrack while I fix dinner.
I,
Um,
I hope, man, I really hope.
I mean, if people listen to it, that's the reason why it's there.
I hope someone does it.
Which End of the Line has that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, End of the Line has the isolated score. So there you go. We're trying to do is we're trying to feed you this weird shit. And hopefully you look at the I think we even have all the storyboards for Copperhead.
Yeah, we have literally everything ever.
Yeah, we have the storyboards on there. We have the press material. There's like 9 minutes of just continuous storyboards. Because that's the crazy thing is like, you hear a lot about these shot on video movies, and it's just people going out and making a film on a whim, like no preparation, no proper like lights, no proper like the Paytons actually really tried to make a movie here.
Yeah.
They hired a firearms guy because they had a ton of they had real guns and live ammunition on the set. So all the guns that are being shot and the things that are getting shot up, those are actually real rounds. Nothing fake, but they did take the proper route. They did hire a professional on there. They had, being that they couldn't do it, they were too busy focused on the film. They had real animal snake wranglers. So I think they said they had like 30 some copperheads,
Yeah.
and they would kind of set them loose in scenes, and then they would try to get them all rounded up. And if they couldn't find one, everybody had to freeze because you couldn't do anything, because if you got fucking bit, that'd be terrible. So it was a very stressful process to do it, but they hired, like I said, they hired like a real DP. They just didn't shoot it themselves. So there's a lot of framing in Copperhead and a lot of camera movement that actually is really well done.
Yeah,
I like the part where we're talking about like Jack Renner says drop that snake boy, and he like lifts up his glasses just enough, and they have that light beaming right at his eye. And yeah, it's just the cinematography is actually pretty decent on Copperhead. And that was obviously shot mainly by Kevin. And then Leland actually shot a lot of the stuff with up close with the Copperhead because of his experience with snakes and working with snakes. He can kind of tell like what could happen, how the snake's moving, how the snake's looking at you, it's about to strike. So he actually took over for a lot of those shots because he didn't want anybody else to get bit or hurt. So it's kind of cool hearing those stories because even though it's shot on video, I know shot on video sometimes get a bad rap because it's poor filmmaking in a sense to a lot of people. But with Copperhead, they kind of went all out.
Yeah.
And especially Leland storyboarded all the scenes.
Yeah, it's great.
No one fucking like even independent filmmakers that are making films that you see like nowadays don't storyboard stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of cool. And I think that's it. I mean, there's a lot of shit on fucking Copperhead disc. Like I said, 13 plus hours for sure.
Yeah. It dawned on me. I don't know that we've ever talked about this, nor do I know if it's important to talk about, but for some reason while you were chatting, it dawned on me that TerraVision, to my knowledge, and you might actually be able to chime in and correct me, but to my knowledge is the only home video label that also acts as a record label. like ever. Like, I mean, I mean,
there's one-offs, but
that was the one thing I was going to say is I understand a thing here and there, but like we've got a shit ton of movies locked down and a shit ton of scores coming out.
And then we sometimes have both,
right? So
like Copperhead, where we're going to release the film and then release the soundtrack, or the soundtrack will come later. Sometimes the soundtrack might come first, depending on how everything operates. Because as people need to know, TerraVision at this point is you, me, Chloe, Justin, and Michael helps out. And then you have your people, of course, in the warehouse that help ship and stuff. But kind of the process behind the scenes, there's not a lot of us.
Well, Justin, we just added, we
just so Justin Beam is officially part of TerraVision, helping with numerous things. He's kind of a godsend. We quickly realized that within the first week of having him on board. He's a machine. So that was really cool. So you'll see a lot of Reverend Entertainment stuff pop up for people that follow Justin on his his production company and whatnot. So we're happy to have him on board. He'll be doing a lot of creative things and cool shit, and of course he'll probably be part of this podcast in the future. We just wanted to do this to get it kind of the first episode out and kind of like what we're going to be talking about, and like I said, the process. And I think that pretty much covered it on those two titles. I mean, there's a lot of other behind the scenes stuff that we'll get to and we'll talk about. I mean, we'll probably have Chloe on for shipping and questions and shit like that. But yeah, that kind of covers those two titles, and we hope that people enjoy them. I mean, they're vastly different. It's kind of night and day between the films, but a lot of the stuff that we're going to release, it's going to be a wild journey.
Yeah.
I kind of like the idea that you'll sit back and you'll say, what the fuck is happening? Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you releasing? What is this? We actually get off on that. So it's building kind of a library that we want to see and we love. But I think that's the kind of fun journey, is that can be anything, and you're not going to be able to guess what we're doing, unless we obviously give hints, which we have done that a little bit here and there, and we have quite a bit. So kind of the future, I guess the next step of TerraVision is that, we are obviously a very, very small operation, smaller than most probably video labels, because it's kind of odd because, our staff is the beginning of a home video label, but we're trying to do the output of a video label that's been around for a couple of years, which is very taxing and scary. And we're still working through obstacles and getting that, because it really is hard to operate with just a couple people. It's not because we need more people to do it. It's that we all are learning, because we all come from different backgrounds of doing certain things, but none of us have really done it all, which I don't think there's honestly a lot of video labels where you have people that do it all. That's researching, acquisitions, licensing, paying the people, getting the elements, scanning the elements, doing the restoration, producing extras, send it off to authoring, designing the artwork. Like, there are people that oversee the big process, but those people physically don't do the process.
Well, I did want to add that Earl actually is a part of TerraVision too.
There you go. Sorry about that, Earl. Yeah. So Earlcast does.
I don't think he'd be mad. But
what?
I said I don't think he'd be mad. I just
I feel terrible at this point. So But Earl, that's the cool thing with TerraVision, I think, is that there's a consistency with kind of our art. So
Since the
Earl,
very first release, he literally has done every single piece of artwork, or at least it's gone through him to put his
yeah,
little magic touch on it.
yeah. So everything record side and video side, and that's going to continue. Um, so that's the cool thing about TerraVision too, is because a lot of, I think, labels, they have different artists that do different things, which is completely 100% cool. Very, very cool. I'm glad they do it. But with TerraVision, we do like a little consistency, um, like behind the scenes sort of things. And that's probably why we're small, is because we like to, I know I like to be in control of a lot of things, and I like to be very aware of what's happening with what. I don't like to have non-answers. Like, hey, what's going on with this? I don't know. I got to check with this person. They got to check. No. It all goes through us. So again, that's why we're having a little bit, but the whole point of this conversation is that, and why I brought it up, is that the output of TerraVision we're trying to increase. I don't know what that's going to be in 3 months. I know what I want it to be, but our output will be increasing. I know that we obviously started out very, I mean, we do have these titles that were with the partner aspect of of the partnership with Vinegar Syndrome, but since Santa Claus and on, that has ceased. So Santa Claus is the first title as an independent like entity, from TerraVision, kind of handling how you've done with the record label all this time.
Yeah, it should be
Um,
should be noted there is no distribution network other than our own, right? Which
right.
is how TerraVision, Greyface has existed for like 22 years. Um, so like you probably won't find our stuff on Amazon right away. It will make its way there eventually, but it will be because somebody that we're selling to sells on Amazon. Like I just uh oddly enough, that's never been a concern for me. I understand some people shop there exclusively, but I don't. Um, so like we care about supplying, you know, our Asheville friends and Knoxville friends, and we want to take care of the stores that we're like actually friends with first before we ever would fuck with a distribution company. Now, eventually we might go with a distributor if we find that it's too much work, um or maybe we're not getting the results that we demand. But I really like, since Santa Claus, we're just doing it ourselves, and it feels very good.
Yeah, and that gives us more control. And our stuff is available. You can find it on Orbit,
Yeah, Orbit's good.
Diabolic, Grindhouse Video. So a very kind of like punk rock type distribution in the beginning here. And again, like Ryan said, that may change in the future. But as of right now, we don't have any plans because we are starting off slow. We are starting off small. But very soon we want to have the output of a label that has been around for, a couple years. We're trying to turn that around in 3 months. And we'll see what happens. But that's kind of the goal. For we get a lot of questions right now of like, well, if your output is, set, because we have disclosed that we're trying to do 10 titles for so stupid. 10 titles for October, which that is still a thing. Who knows? We may make it 12. Who fucking knows? But it'll be 10 titles right now is the projected amount for October. But the thing is even if we don't hit, like, even if we say like, oh, there's 4 titles this month, 5 titles this month, and it's not, it doesn't change anything. You'll still get your X amount of units, and anything can delay a release. That's the other thing, is so in the structuring of a schedule and lining things up at a video label company like TerraVision, is that we have things that we are working on for that given month. If something pops up to us with a release that we're able to make something better or change it or fix a problem, we'll just fucking delay it. Like we don't.
It's not a
We're huh?
yeah, it's not. It's totally not a big deal to do that.
Yeah. It's not a big deal to us. And if something is delayed or just like, hey guys, we're not doing 5, we're doing 4, and this title's getting pushed back, or if we've already announced it, we'll just fucking do it because one, we're not going to half-ass anything, and that's something else we can get into with TerraVision is that I guess we haven't mentioned that. So we'll be doing, of course, shot on video stuff. We'll be doing, new transfers. We'll be doing UHD. We'll be doing, digital films. We're doing a lot of independent stuff from like the 2000s, which a lot of that's HD cam, whatnot. That said, whatever the best source of video we're able to get is what will happen. That said, if there is a film that needs to be reconstructed because the movie was edited on tape, and sometimes people hear that the movie's edited on tape. What does that mean? That means that they shot the movie on film, they transferred all the tape, and then they edited it on tape. So they never touched the negative. So the negative is uncut. That means that instead of 4 reels, you may have 20 reels. And that is incredibly time consuming because what you have to do is you have to scan all of that film material. So in order to scan film material, it costs per foot. So a regular film scan on, let's just say a 16 millimeter film, you may have 2,000 feet. So you have X amount times X amount that it costs per foot. But if you have a film that's edited on tape and you have the negatives, you may scan 28,000 feet of film, and that's incredibly expensive. Now, you don't remaster and color grade all that stuff, but you have to have software, and you do a side-by-side. Literally, you put in the version of the movie that and then you watch, and you find the takes that they used. I can't even tell you how it begins, how time-consuming this is. But I guarantee we will do it if that comes across. That said, a lot of film material is just gone. And there's a lot of films in this industry that have been neglected because film material is known to be tossed. It happens with filmmakers. I'm talking to filmmakers. It's like, hey, you made this movie? Yeah. You own it? Yeah, absolutely do. You have film elements? No, I threw them away. You're like, what? You threw away your negatives? Yep, they were in my garage for years, and I got tired of moving them around. I moved a couple times, and they're heavy as shit because they are, and I just threw them in the trash. Well, at that point, there's nothing you could fucking do. I mean, there are prints of titles, but sometimes the movies that we're dealing with didn't play theatrically. Sometimes,
Sometimes.
most of the time, yeah. And now sometimes prints are struck for the director and whatnot, and those come in incredibly handy because you're able to do HD. You can't do UHD on prints, so when that gets brought up, and to clarify, there's like a UHD craze right now where it's like, what do you? If it's 4K, why isn't you? UHD isn't capable on everything. You can't do UHD on everything, even if you have film material. You can scan it at 4K, but that's not UHD. So keep that in mind for people that love to give labels a hard time, which I see it all the time, that 4K and UHD are two separate things. Just because something's scanned in 4K doesn't mean that it has UHD capabilities. Because we have a movie that is coming out in August that we have sourced from the only surviving print of the film. The negatives are gone. It's a 16 millimeter film, and the print's there. We scanned it at 4K, but you cannot do UHD on it. So, and if there is UHD capabilities, We are not one of these companies that are going to release a movie on Blu-ray and it was like, oh shit, it did well. 6 months we're going to do a 4K UHD. No, that's bullshit. We're not going to fucking do that to you. So we promise that if we have the capability to do a UHD, we will do it. We will not do it down the line. Because that's the thing, if it's possible, we're just going to do it. Now there are certain things, to contradict myself a tiny bit. There are certain films that, may not warrant a UHD release, depending on what it is and how we source the material. So that said, what that means is that a lot of times we've acquired a lot of films from other countries. When you're dealing with foreign films anywhere, they are very protective of their film elements. They do not want to rescan things. They do not want to touch their elements again because they feel, and sometimes UHD isn't like a thing in other countries. So they don't see the need for it. So sometimes dealing with foreign films that we acquire from foreign entities, even if they are in English, sometimes those will be 2K, 4K scans without UHD capabilities because they didn't scan it at the correct bit rate. And we're not going to lie on UHD either, because there are some companies that you can put UHD out that isn't true UHD, it's just upscaling. We're not doing that shit either, because UHD is like 3 times as expensive as a Blu-ray. And we're a small company, so we're not going to fucking fake something and spend the extra money on it and not do well on it. That's not going to happen. But that said, what I wanted to reiterate is sometimes if our license expires and then 5 years down the road, they rescan it and then someone else picks a UHD, it's not our fault. We always try to inquire like, hey, can we rescan this? We'll pay for it. It can't leave the country. And sometimes, again, other countries do not have the best scanners sometimes. So a scanner, there's quite a few scanners in the industry. And some are good, some are bad, some are okay. And what you're left sometimes is you're left with the decision that, okay, you have the decent scanner, let's go ahead and do it. And that's what you have to do, especially if it's a foreign country, because they are limited to what they can do. And also don't forget that some government entities are involved in the art side in certain countries. So they're actually sanctioned by the government and they will not allow the film to leave the country. That happens all the time. But again, when movies come out on this label, this is what this podcast is here, or video cast, as Ryan wanted to call it, jumping back to the early 2000s here. We will be very transparent about what we did and how we did it. And we just want to be clear that we're not going to pull the UHD fast one on you, where if something does well, we're going to release it down the line. So if you do see 4K from us, that's not UHD, get that out of your head that it's the same thing. We will be very, very vocal about this cannot have UHD capabilities. And if someone does come along and does it, they're probably lying, because 4K can be UHD can be faked. I mean, it happens all the time with these these studio titles. They just upscale the Blu-ray. That's all it is, and they call it UHD, and it's bullshit. That's why we have these awesome nerds. I love them. People like at Digital Bits and stuff like that really analyze the Blu-rays and let you know what the frame rate and all that other stuff is. Not frame rate, but just bring up the little info about how things were done. So that's always very convenient. I'm glad those exist. But jumping back again, sometimes we will have films that we release that do have beta SP masters, tape masters that were shot on film, but this is the only source for them. And I truly don't feel that a film should be neglected because it doesn't have film elements. Because that's going to happen. The film elements are gone, and we've exhausted every avenue on these things. We have a set of films coming out in the near future that we've been searching and we'll continue searching. It's not like we give up. But if all these things lead to a dead end and you're told that they're disposed of or they don't exist, I mean, you got to believe it at some point, you know. And that's what we'll take as the answer, and we'll move forward with our release. Now, if film elements do pop up in the later time, then obviously we will investigate that and maybe do a re-release or whatnot and give it a proper treatment. But until then, you will have all types of things. But we'll be very, very vocal about that. I mean, Killing Spree is a prime example for this. You know, Killing Spree sometimes is categorized as a shot on video movie, but it's not shot on film. But that was sourced from what did Tim use? Beta SP Master?
Beta SP, yeah.
Yeah. So it looks good, you know, but it's not film. And that's what happens. I know, and some companies have done this. They've done like DVD only of that. I think NBD did something with Project Metal Beast. You know, they got the rights to that, but all there was a Betacam SP Master. So they did DVD, which is the logical thing probably to do. But we're idiots, and we're going to do Blu-ray. Mainly because I don't think people buy DVDs much anymore. I know it's the number one, but you're also talking about Best Buy and Walmart, and you're talking about, people buying Avengers on DVD for $10 at Walmart. We're not talking about boutique labels. They just don't do well on the boutique. So you won't be seeing any DVDs in the near future from us that we know of, at least, right? No DVDs? I don't think so. No DVDs.
I can't think of anything that we have locked down right now that I desperately want to have on DVD.
we should if we do a DVD, we'll probably have all the bells and whistles.
Yeah. What's funny is I feel like I wonder if there's similarity between the people. Every time I announce a new vinyl release, I always have one or two people that say, "How about a CD?" I wonder if those are the same people that every time we announce a Blu-ray, they're like, "When's the DVD?"
Well, I mean, we could talk about that. You did a CD. How'd that do, Ryan?
Not good.
Yeah. So that's why there's no CDs. So, I mean, I see that a lot. It's like, if you put this on CD, I would buy it. Well, 5 people, 10 people, that doesn't really warrant, because you just can't press that many. You've got to press in bulk with a lot of things. We can't make, 25 Blu-rays. I mean, we can, but they would be made like BDRs. They wouldn't sell.
I will say, like, the point of the label is kind of selfish in the sense that, like, I don't give a fuck about the DVD format and I don't give a fuck about the CD format. So that's why I never thought about putting those out previously,
Yeah.
So it's a label, at least from my perspective, that's based on the things that I want. Like I'm releasing things that I want to be buying, basically, more or less. So
yeah, no, I mean, that's why we connected, and we're on the same page. And that goes for tapes too, because not cassettes, but VHS tapes, because we will be having VHS tapes released from time to time. So those are on the docket for TerrorVision, which those will pop up, but they'll be limited, of course, because obviously those don't do incredibly well, but well enough to warrant a tape release.
Yeah, I do think it's funny using the word limited, right? When in reality, it's like, if people preferred that format, it would be unlimited. It's only limited because there's not that many people that would buy it.
Yeah. And I mean, that's why we have limited edition, slip covers, which to reiterate on that is that we'll always have slip covers for our titles, but the titles will always be available until the license is up, of course, on those movies. So once Santa Claus sells out, because I think there's like 180 copies left of Santa Claus, something like that.
Down to like 150, but yeah.
Yeah. So after Santa Claus is sold out, regular disc will be available without the slipcover. Nothing changes but the piece of fucking cardboard that's on it.
Actually, with that one, Earl really liked this other piece of artwork that I didn't think at the time fit with the initial release. So tentatively, the next printing of that will have different. It's not a slipcover, but the regular Blu-ray art will be different.
Yeah.
So that's be prepared for that. I'm talking to anyone that has OCD because it's going to be a different piece of artwork.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, but the disc will still be available. Yes. Our title after that is Attack of the Killer Refrigerator, which has Hook of Woodland Heights, the Snapper documentary, a lost short film called Days Before Christmas, and then Defrosted, which is a documentary from the filmmakers talking about filmmaking. And there's plenty of extras on there with interviews and commentaries. So when you see Attack of the Killer Refrigerator, it's not just the 16-minute movie on Blu-ray, which I think people have been confused about. Because we've been told, I'm not paying $24.99 for a 16-minute movie. Yeah, I wouldn't either, but that's not what's on the disc. There's hours and hours of content.
It's a collection of all their films.
Yeah. So it's three short films, which Attack of the Killer Refrigerator is 16 minutes. Hook of Woodland Heights is like 30, 40. Days Before Christmas is like 15, something like that. And then Snapper's like 30 minutes. And then I don't know how long Defrosted is. I don't remember.
A bunch of stuff, and it totals plenty of time.
Yeah. There's hours of content on that disc to make sense of its price tag.
In reality, in the interest of being honest, I think we probably should, looking back, we probably should have called it, the Media House collection, or I would have used the word collection because it did seem to confuse a lot of people that it's like all these things, it's like,
yeah,
use the word collection, people are like, oh right, it's a collection of all these things. I'm down for that, but whatever, live and learn. Live and fucking learn.
So Attack of the Killer Refrigerator is still available. I think it's down to like 800 some on that. But yeah, and then if you want to sign up for the video club and you want those previous titles, just email us, and those can be part of your package. That would of course knock you down to like 6 more. But to jump back again on signing up for the video club, there's a lot of questions of like, well, if I sign up and I'm due 2 titles left, but you release 5 titles that next month, what happens? Well, you get them numerically.
You're fucked.
Huh?
You're fucked.
Yeah. Everything ends. You can't never buy anything again. No. So all the TerraVision editions, they're numbered numerically, and those are in order. So you would get 18 and 19, or whatever you're at. You would just get the next 2, and then you can re-up and then get the next 10. Now to add on to that, when we are adding more titles per month, we're not doing it right now because we're not releasing that many a month. But once we get the ball rolling and we're doing more output and we're meeting our personal goals as a company, we will have a restructured, not really restructured, but maybe a higher amount of copies that are that you'll get. Maybe it's 20 or 30 or 40 or 50, different tiers, so you don't have to keep renewing, and you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, it might be quarterly, or
we'll like a 6-month type thing, or 50 titles or something like that, which obviously that number would go up in price for it, but we will have something a little bit better to accommodate you, so you're not re-upping every 10 titles, because if we're doing what our goal is 5 titles a month, then 2 months you're fucking done.
Yeah.
So but again,
We'll get there.
we'll get there. Yeah, it's just the time thing. Is there anything else you want to cover, Mr. Grayface?
I think it's an interesting perspective that you and I are pretty anal about this shit. So like you and I are on the same page. Like we basically missed an entire month of releases, which would be what we're releasing right now, because we're so particular about the sort of final product that I'm actually proud of that. Like I think that's super cool, because a year ago in the sort of distribution situation that we were in previously, we didn't have that luxury. It's like you have to turn this in on this day and blah 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 blah. So it's kind of neat that we're both, neither one of us is like, fuck it, like, all right, fuck them, they don't get captions. Fuck them. Like, we have the literal opposite attitude. It's like, all right, cool, we'll just postpone this, or we'll just delay it by 3 weeks, or whatever. Which obviously is not ideal from a company standpoint by any means, but I mean,
we're not going to aim to do that stuff. It's going to be few and far between, because the thing about this is that, we are doing everything by ourselves now. And I mean, this is every in and out from, calling the person to get the rights, everything to get that movie on disc and in your hands. It goes through Ryan and myself. So other companies, they obviously have multiple people, multiple departments that it hands off. And, that's something that we've done and I've done for years. I handed off things. I never saw it through. So we do have a lot of learning that we're doing, a lot of experiences, and the do's and do nots, and what we can do to make things better. And this is mainly internally, not for the customer. But we're also always listening. If you have email us about a question or something that we can fix, then obviously do so, and we'll look into it and see what we can do. But yeah, I think that pretty much covers. I mean, we'll talk about other things.
No, I got to pee.
The next video. You got to pee?
Yeah, we got to end this so I can pee.
The next video cast we'll talk about more. But End of the Line and Copperhead are available now, and pick them up while supplies last. They'll be around for a while. Slip covered or not, you'll be able to get it. And yeah, I think that pretty much ends the first episode of what will be the TerrorVision
video
record podcast video cast. Yeah.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for buying, and wish Ryan well in the bathroom.
I'm just gonna probably pee outside.